The people in Davos, they're not even trying to hide anymore what their plan is. Frighten you to death about the climate, utilize climate as a way to move an economic agenda. And oh, by the way, you can't move the economic agenda unless capitalism is done. I'm not engaging in any hyperbole. I am engaging only in the facts as presented over the last 2 days by these people who are, well, quite clearly, the enemy of humanity. I don't even know, again, how that's hyperbolic. It's just the facts. Guys, good to be with you. The show presented, oh, look at me. You can see me right there. Presented by Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org, economic freedom, free speech. Good people. They've also been doing some investigating over there. The AFP Foundation, investigating Alejandro Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, utilizing his personal email for official business. They over there at the Americans for Prosperity Foundation. That's better. They've been engaging FOIA requests, getting records from the secretary and messages on his personal accounts. Of course, you're not allowed to use your personal account for this kind of work, but it happens all the time. I mean, Hillary Clinton, it's all we have to go back to. It's wrong, and it keeps happening even after we've already discussed how wrong it is. You can find more about that at AmericansForProsperity.org. The opposition to capitalism, the hatred of capitalism. It's not even opposition. It is a hatred of capitalism. Overwhelming as one of the main conversation pieces there in Davos, along with a free speech conversation, of course, this climate conversation that I'm discussing. And I want to share with you the guy who put Davos together, the World Economic Forum. And remember, this isn't about economics and like, hey, how do we make things better? And their answer is to destroy the things that has created, the things that have created the most amount of prosperity the world has ever seen, the things that have risen more people out of poverty, the way to create better lives by you pursuing your passions and creating ideas and thoughts and then going out there and seeking if you can monetize them to the extent that you're happy. Remember, people engage a conversation about capitalism as this evil thing. What is evil? Capitalism, allowing people to live their lives to the moment of their happiness without the concept of acceptance. What's so wrong about people saying, I want to go pursue this or I want to go pursue that? I've often discussed capitalism. People think of it as, well, it's about money. Is it? Or is it about choosing your own course? If we were to discuss the idea of happiness, who's happier? The biomed CEO making $22 million a year, or the guy who teaches people how to ski in Vail and lives in a studio apartment? Who would be happier? The biomed CEO has got 8,000 square feet and 3 Porsches and this, that, and the other. But is he happier than the guy who wanted to simply be skiing his whole life and teach ski lessons to allow himself or herself to do that exact thing? It would seem to me that happiness is a very individual subject. And only capitalism allows people to choose that course, to live their lives the way they see fit, to the moment of their happiness, without the concept of acceptance, meaning you don't have to like it, I don't have to like it, we don't have to agree with it, we can choose another course. But they have this opportunity to engage nature and nature's law, to live their lives the way they see fit. These people don't believe that. Klaus Schwab, who does, resembles a Bond villain, doesn't believe this. And this was a conversation that he had about capitalism.
We should make here again let's say a differentiation. On the one hand, we have state capitalism. On the other hand, we have shareholder or private capitalism. So it's a clash between two systems. I believe that state capitalism in the short term provides certain advantages, because you can mobilize in a concentrated way a lot of resources to reach a specific objective. But I believe that the future is not state capitalism or shareholder capitalism. The future is what I call stakeholder capitalism, which is combined with a social responsibility.
Let us break down just a couple things really quick. Anytime you have a descriptor of capitalism, you're no longer talking about capitalism. State capitalism, shareholder capitalism, stakeholder capitalism. You are talking about a bastardization of the concept. So anytime anybody uses one of those descriptors, they are talking about ending capitalism all over. That's what they believe. And of course, it's disgusting. This idea of the stakeholder. What about the stakeholders? The stakeholders in the community and stakeholder capitalism, as he's describing it, is the idea that people who were not involved in the creation of the thing should have a say in how the thing acts. So what he's engaging and what he's promoting is socialism. He's saying that if you create something, others who had nothing to do with the creation at all should have a say in how that thing acts. And that, of course, is not it. We can discuss Twitter as a great example of this. If Twitter wants to go about saying this person can't speak and you can't say that, they could. Any company could indeed do that. But if they're making the claim that they allow engagement on a platform, well, then they have to allow the engagement, or they should allow the engagement. And when, as we've seen from the Twitter files, they're not allowing certain people to speak because a specific political party via the federal government is telling them not to allow these things, well, then we're no longer talking about a company acting of its own free will. We're actually engaging in the dictionary definition of fascism, which is government working in concert with corporations. That's what we're referring to. So when they start talking about social media and the responsibility of social media, you get the UN Secretary General saying things like this.
Yes, but there is a responsibility of the platforms. I mean, one can argue if we have something, as you mentioned, in the media, and if someone is attacked in a way that is wrong, there is a possibility to go to the court. In social media, there is no responsibility. And I can understand the argument of social media platforms saying, well, this is put by people, so it's not our responsibility. But the truth is that the algorithms are made in such a way that they amplify, in a preferential way, a certain number of things. And when the algorithm amplifies, then there is, in my opinion, a responsibility, and there should be accountability, including through the legal system in relation to those situations. At least when false information, defamation, all other kinds of things are benefited, are not only just what someone puts, but are benefited by the way the algorithm amplifies that. That creates, in my opinion, a responsibility of the platform.
The platform's responsibility via the algorithm should not be based on whether or not the Secretary General of the United Nations thinks that it creates disinformation. If a doctor takes a look at data and says, you know what, we're handling COVID wrong, why is that doctor being prevented from being able to share that? Because the Secretary General decides it's disinformation? We are no longer engaged in a free speech conversation or a sharing conversation. We're engaged in an approved speech and sharing conversation. That is not free. Now, you understand that part of this really gets to what is the American psyche versus the rest of the world. We are different. There are many nations that are very accepting of the idea of the accepted speech. Oh, sure, you can say what you want as long as you say this, as long as you don't say that. We don't view things like that in the United States. We don't view it like that in the United States. We view it much differently. You're allowed to say things. I'm a big believer in this. You need bad ideas to be said out loud in the public square. They have to be brought up so people can say, you know what, that idea sucks. And then people can go, hey, yeah, that idea does suck. And someone can go, wow, I had that idea. That idea sucked. All right, work on that. That's how it's done. To say that an idea is unacceptable, to say that not only is it unacceptable, we won't even allow you to share that idea. And if we're going to discuss the algorithm, being the thing that moves and motivates this misinformation and disinformation. Are we sure that that's the case? Because we haven't even properly defined misinformation and disinformation. There is disinformation that is out there. I don't think we're going to deny that. And there are people who put things out there and they're clearly wrong. But that's different than saying we decided that only these things, as told to us from some governmental agency on high, are the acceptable things. The New York Post story about Hunter Biden's laptop was neither misinformation nor disinformation. But it wasn't just the algorithm that prevented that from being shared. It was the people who worked at Twitter who said, we can't have this. Even though, as we know, of course, the story was accurate. And now you've got intelligence officials who all signed off on that letter. Oh, this is all the hallmarks of Russian misinformation. They're now starting to admit, oh, yeah, we knew the emails were real. You knew the emails were real, and you still signed on to a letter saying Russian disinformation? You didn't say, hey, look, these emails are clearly real. But we've seen the Russians do this. There you go. That's what we think. No, they didn't do that. They took the position that helped political allies. And Twitter then moved in a way that helped political allies. Because if we're going to argue that the responsibility is on the publisher, right? Or is on the platform because of the algorithm, then we can clearly say that the misinformation or disinformation comes when you don't allow people like President Trump to speak, or people like me, or people like you, that the algorithm has now failed because it's not allowing this conversation to take place. But then again, the UN isn't the place that should really be the arbiters of what is good and decent. These are the people who think that Libya should be on a human rights council and that Israel is the problem, not the people who I'm going to be looking to. Then, of course, the climate change conversation. It's happening everywhere across Davos, and nothing summed it up better. I mean, people like Mark Benioff of Salesforce, a lot of people saying we're all going to die. We're still on the conversation of we're all going to die. Although we have reports from the United Nations and others that there is cooling going on, that there's ice shelves that are not melting the way they thought. As a matter of fact, they're holding strong. This has all come out in the last few days. Al Gore, in his last dying gasp of being relevant, lost his mind.
Out of the land and creating the droughts and melting the ice and raising the sea level and causing these waves of climate refugees predicted to reach 1 billion in this century. Look at the xenophobia and political authoritarian trends that have come from just a few million refugees. What about 1 billion? We would lose our capacity for self-governance on this world. We have to act. So in answer to your question, I would say we have to have a sense of urgency much greater than we have yet had, and we need to make some changes.
Yar! That was Howard Dean. That's my Howard Dean impression. That's pretty good, right? That's my Howard Dean right there. Honestly, I'm ready to go work the circuit doing that impression right there. Oh. Honestly, Al Gore should have just said, me, I'm important. Look at me. You know, it's it's best in show. Don't look at those losers. You look at me. That's something. We've been through all the scare tactics. We've been through every single one of them, and we've been through them for 30, 40, 50 years now. In the 70s, it was magazines like, I think it was Time magazine, telling us that an ice age was coming. And then everybody has told us we'd have 12 years left to live and that the sea levels were going to rise and create massive floods. And I know that that's true because Barack Obama bought a house right on the coast. Well, the minute that happened, you knew that whole line of talk was just silliness. Don't burn tires in the middle of the road. Conservation, that has value. Environmentalists are a cult. They choose this. It is absolutely a cult, not a religion, because a religion ostensibly is based on some system of values. This is a cult. And however the cult moves, they move in a way to build the cult and create more cultists. Al Gore is desperate to still be relevant. And he's not. And he proved it once again. But this is the kind of talk that's happening. And all that talk is then focused around how you need to change. No, not you. How they need to change you. How you need to listen to them. There's a lot of talk there that we need to do away with this idea of separate nations and really get into this level of one world governance where we set the rules for the others because they do not know how to do. It was the World Economic Forum. What was the, I always get the little line wrong, but go with me on this. You'll have nothing and be happy. You will own nothing and be happy. That's their theory. They know what's best for you. You will eat crickets and you will be thankful. Now, if somebody wants to go about eating crickets, go eat a cricket. Go right ahead. If you want to dine on a little Jiminy, knock yourself out. I'm having a steak. My ribeyes are medium and my strips are medium rare because I want a little more rendering of the fat in the ribeye, right? You got more marbling there. And so I also want it cooked a little bit longer. And to me, it creates a much better texture within the meat. But a strip, I want medium rare because it doesn't have all of that level of marbling. And so therefore, I want it to have just a little more of that pliability to it. It's just a little something, personal thing from me to you. But the idea that we should go about saying bugs are the future and do away with this because somebody from on high decided that's what's best for me. That's part of the why Americans see Davos as so odd. These people believe they know what's best for you and me, and then they want to go so far as to say, and you have to do this, pat on the head, and you'll thank us for it. They are convinced that they are our betters, are our betters. There you go. They're convinced of this, and they want to go about pushing this, and that's why they go to Davos. And it's so interesting that this used to be, I guess, something that was maybe a little more under the radar, a little more underground. It ain't underground. They are right out there in the holy damn open telling you they want to run this thing. You should not have a say. The conversations about being carbon neutral, they would take away. It was Scotland that said the days of private car ownership are truly over. They want to take away your car. The thing that has allowed people the most levels of freedom, the most opportunity to travel, the most opportunity to connect with other people. They want to take that away. Your mode of transportation. Here in Indianapolis, there's still a push for buses and electric buses. And then these what we call here the red line, and they're now trying to build a blue line and a purple line, which are all about electric buses. They took away lanes of traffic from cars, and they have these buses that run through. Never mind that the electric buses don't work. The electric buses came from China, and these batteries don't work in the cold. They didn't work in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's much warmer in Albuquerque than it is in Indianapolis. They didn't work here as well, but they're convinced that this is the right thing to do. This is what we want. Nobody wants centralized planning because a bus is going from the city's determination of point A to the city's determination of point B. But you want to go from your point A to your point B. So why in the world are we thinking about buses? A 20th century solution for a 21st century problem doesn't make any sense at all. But they're convinced you'll be happier. But you won't be happier. You can't be happier. There's just no way for that to happen. Now, there were some other pretty ridiculous things going on in Davos, like Brian Stelter.
I'll tell you a brief, funny, maybe not funny story. So I leave CNN, and there's a crazy website that posts an article saying I was arrested by military police. And then I have a fact-checking email, and I don't know whether to reply to the fact-checker and bother with this, right? Same website a month later says I've been executed at Guantanamo Bay. So the fact-checker emails me again. And I say, well, do you want to take my pulse? How do I disprove that I wasn't executed? And so to me, that is amusing and ridiculous.
I I don't know what else to. I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. Why is Brian Stelter at Davos? Brian Stelter also referred to himself as formerly at CNN. No, wait, he left CNN, even though he was fired by CNN. And then he got a gig at Harvard, and now he's at Davos, only proving it doesn't matter how wrong you are. When you belong to the political left, there's always a gig for you. Incredible. Oh, speaking of people who have a gig, even though they're very bad at their job, did you hear Corinne Jean-Pierre trying to get snippy with members of the press when she won't answer questions about Joe Biden's classified documents?
He chided former President Trump for having in his possession classified documents. He called it irresponsible. First of all, do you think it was proper for President Biden to comment on an ongoing DOJ investigation?
So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to keep it really short today, as it relates to this particular issue, as it relates to an ongoing legal matter. I'm going to refer you to Department of Justice with that specific, as it relates to anything that you want to ask of us about this legal matter. I would refer you to the White House Counsel office. I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go into further.
I'm simply asking you to comment
the person
that you work for.
I just commented. We're moving on. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I already answered your question. Go ahead.
You really didn't.
Well, I did.
No, you didn't.
Well, it's your opinion. It's your opinion. It's your opinion. That is your opinion. Go ahead.
Who had Corinne Jean-Pierre cribbing from The Big Lebowski? Let's just, your opinion, man. Oh, she's so bad at this. Davos is dangerous, and the World Economic Forum is not hiding their agenda anymore. They really believe that they know what's best, and they're going to do anything they can to shove it down your throat. Your freedom will only come when you accept them as your overlords. Let's go to the comments as we do. Yes, Corinne Jean-Pierre will always be cringe Jean-Pierre to all of us. That I coined that term, and just please give me credit when you use it. Right there. This is not horse soldier right here. This is recovery rye. I may have the last two bottles in existence. I created a rye whiskey here in Indiana when COVID hit, because hospitality workers were put out of business because you had lockdowns and shutdowns and all these kinds of things. So created with a couple of people this rye whiskey, 90 proof. And we sold it all across the state of Indiana and raised money for the Restaurant Hospitality Association. Name actually eludes me right now. Provided scholarships, grants, $500 grants to help servers, bartenders, cooks, all sorts of things who were having a hard time because they weren't making a living during COVID. So that's what that is. It was a limited run and sold across the state. I may have the last two bottles that exist. And I am a rye whiskey guy, even more so than bourbon. I like rye. I am a fan of rye for sure. Let me go back to the comments here. Brian Stelter is as relevant as a used, I think you meant shoebox. I think I would say that's if it's a shoebox of Air Jordans, it'll get you more money. So even a shoebox has more to offer than Brian Stelter. I think that's pretty clear and pretty obvious. I find it amazing that he's there. I find it amazing that they're utilizing him, because he's a clown and he proved it. He is the one who made himself look silly. He is the one who made himself through his pompousness, showed himself to be unserious about actually taking a look at media. Remember, his show was called Reliable Sources, and it was focused on looking at the media, but he never actually did the job. Why in the world would Davos, if they want to be taken seriously, be utilizing someone like him as a moderator for their conversations? And the answer is, of course, being serious isn't what it's about. Being of the right ideological mind is what it's about. If you want to argue that Davos is having this real important conversation, these big, engaging these big, weighty issues, I was not invited to Davos. I wasn't invited to speak to say, you know what, I disagree with you. Here's how I think we can create a better world. They don't talk to you, me, and we. They aren't interested in the other point of view. So the World Economic Forum is about an ideological bent. The only way to combat that is to have more gatherings of people who have other thoughts and freely share those thoughts with everybody else. Get them out there. Give them other things to think about. Give them other ways to look at things. All of these news organizations are going to say, ooh, important things happened in Davos today. But these weren't important things. These are silly things. These are bad ideas that make lives worse. Let us tell people why that is. And that's why I bring up the capitalism conversation. Anything that is meant to be a descriptor for capitalism isn't actual capitalism. And if the stakeholder is what matters, then what Klaus Schwab was saying there is that the person who creates the business, including you in your hometown, you shouldn't have the final say. Others who have no skin in the game should somehow be able to tell you how to run that business, how to utilize the dollars that business makes, what you should be charging, what you should be paying people. Your profit is not the thing that matters, even though it is profit that creates the opportunities that make the world a much, much better place. Yes, profit does that. Profit motive is what moves people. You will not have innovation and creation in a world that doesn't have profit motive. You can't. It simply doesn't work. We have the history, we have the data, we've proven it. Yet these people still want to tell you that you will be happy when you do it their way. You know, it's like I was on Newsmax today, and it was a conversation about Virginia schools. There are now 16 districts where they did not share with students that they were national merit scholars. They didn't share the information. These students have worked hard. They've studied. They maybe have natural aptitudes. Look, there is natural lottery. I was not born 6'4". I don't have a jump shot. I was never going to play basketball, but other people were born 6'4", and they are able to play basketball. That's natural lottery. That's the way it goes. I mean, I guess I could still have tried to play, but it would not have worked. I would not be in the NBA. These students worked hard and became national merit scholars, but they weren't given the announcement. It was withheld from them. The schools claim it was a glitch. It wasn't a glitch. It was in the guise of equity. They didn't want the other students to be down. They wanted to equalize things out. That's what they never tell you about their plans, whether it's what happens with certain teachers' unions and certain teachers, or what's happening here in the World Economic Forum. You will be happy if you do it their way, but their way never rises or brings anybody up. It never raises anybody up. It pushes everybody down to equal. Equity, DEI especially, is bigotry. It is hate. It diminishes people who have worked hard because it says, yeah, but it's like those schools that we no longer have honors classes. We no longer have the advanced math classes because it makes the other kids feel bad. Why? I can't help it if another kid feels bad, but this kid is exceptionally good at math. Let's push them as far as they can go. Let's not limit them. What society could thrive with the idea of limitation? It's disgusting and it's despicable. And that is Davos. That's what they believe. There is very little difference between the woke that we see in schools and on college campuses and what these so-called leaders are discussing there in Switzerland. And it's up to us to be discussing it, to be knocking it around. These bad ideas that are being brought into the public sphere, they need to be told that they're bad ideas. Man, support Rumble. Support Rumble, people. and subscribe to me on Rumble if you would. Rumble.com/Tony Katz. And I appreciate all the people who are over there at Rumble. Give me a couple of the thumbs up. Give me a couple good rumbles, a comment, subscribe. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here. And my thanks to Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org, economic freedom, free speech. They let me do the show. And man, do I love doing it. I will catch you guys tomorrow. You can catch me from 6 to 9 a.m. and noon to 3. WIBC, WIBC.com. And the show is growing and we're syndicating out. We're heard on weekends across the country. It's been a lot of fun and more cool stuff is coming. Guys, I will catch you tomorrow.